accounts, finding and ensuring that all of this is exposed thoroughly. I would tell you, sometimes it's very painful when you see some of these cases that are being talked about now. We have been tracking Diezani from the first day she became the Minister of Petroleum Resources. Not only were we tracking her, we were exposing some of her dalliances with some of these young people, because a lot of them are also romantic. She was romantically linked with our former president. We said it. We put it out on social media. And sometimes people say, well, you are disclosing too much about these people's lives. But today, you have heard that everything we've told you, both in pieces or in well-written long-form stories, have become true, to the extent that we can almost disclose today that Diezani by herself might have stolen almost $50 billion. It's not all the money that is still that are invested in real estate. The biggest part of it is also invested in elections. Because the biggest business in Nigeria, the biggest industry, is public office. So anybody who wants to become successful in Nigeria will go after public office. And in getting public office, you have to have a huge war chest. And huge war chest allows you to bribe election officials, police. It allows you to carry out assassinations of your opponents whenever you want and get away with it. And then allows you to grab power. And when you grab power in Nigeria, power is power, as you can imagine in the rawest form. You own not only the streets, you own the church, because the pastors are praying and praising God in your name. In fact, you can design your own God such that that particular God, the Christian God or the Muslim God in Nigeria, does not even see your corruption, even though he's an over-powerful, all-encompassing God that punishes at the slightest provocation. The God in Nigeria does not punish the rich because they are designer gods designed by their pastors or imams. So this is why Nigeria is such a very, very powerful place for corrupt people. Power is concentrated too much in the hands of a few individuals. And the same thing goes for wealth. To the extent that when you talk about the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, for example, the EFCC in Nigeria, which is trying its best, the body has been emasculated, crushed by these powerful people, to the extent that the chairman of the EFCC is more afraid of lawmakers who are criminals. We did a small thing recently about Nigerian governors who were formerly governors, who are now in the Nigerian Senate, who had corruption cases. If the EFCC were to walk into the Nigerian Senate and pick out all the corrupt people, there will be nobody left in our Senate. That's the truth. All of them, because the Senate had become the retirement home for corrupt former governors. If you just walk into the place and arrest everybody who has committed a crime, there will be nobody left at the Senate except the security guard at the place. It's the home of some of the most corrupt criminals in the world. And in doing the kind of work we do, we have to appeal to not only people in government and shaming them, but there's also a very laborious education process for young people in the country. The concept of wealth for young people in Nigeria is so difficult that even after we're done with all the criminals and jail them, you have to do a whole reorientation and re-education of young people. Young people have come to believe in instantaneous wealth. And they don't believe anymore in hard work, because there's nobody in the last 20 years in Nigeria that have come into real wealth who has worked for it. And I'm saying it openly here, and you can just show me one. You can mention, the richest woman in Nigeria, who was a hairdresser, who got an oil block dashed to her. Is that hard work? Or the one who says is the biggest billionaire in Nigeria, who live off of not paying custom, not paying taxes, granted land wherever he wanted, sold to public institutions that belong to the rest of us for peanuts, Those are not people who have worked hard for wealth, but those are the people that the young people believe in. For you to do a great movie in Nigeria, you have to get a house in Ikoyi that is owned by somebody who didn't work for the house. And when somebody sees the movie, it's like, wow, this is a great house. But nobody asks, who's the owner of the house? Interestingly, the owners of the house are given credit at the end of the movie, if you pay attention. And sometimes that's where we get some of our own investigation from, credits of movies. I don't watch Nigerian movies, but I watch the credit. Just like I used to read a newspaper made in the UK known as Ovation magazine. I hated it, but it was the first place where we found all the houses that were bought, with corrupt proceeds in the UK, because the governors used to love to come here, call Dele Momodu to come to their house. They'll do parties, and we'll see the address there. And the next day, we'll buy from the land registry in the UK those property information. Most of the property information you have now, I purchased them personally from the land registry in the UK, which is very easy to do, but it made me broke for a while. Because I just kept, sometimes, we just kept buying property information, and we look at it. And it's very difficult because they were using, as you know, beneficial owners to purchase so many of these properties. But, when it comes to Nigerians, even if they buy a house in another person's name, we are so loud that somehow we will let you know that the house belongs to us. Because we are going to come to your neighborhood and have a big party and have everybody wear their big boo-boo and drive nice cars, and somehow you know that the house belongs to a Nigerian man. And we get information from our brothers and sisters across the world in telling us how this has been. What is interesting, and you must know, I don't want to spend too much of your time, is that if Nigeria were to be run the right way, if the Commonwealth was not looted with the kind of impunity and wickedness that has been happening in the last 50 years, Nigeria could have been one of the best countries in the world. There's enough money in Nigeria. It hurts me badly when I hear people in the US or Europeans talking about, we give you aid, every year. What they call aid is peanuts. I don't think that the UK had given Nigeria up to $1.5 billion in the last 5 years in aid. I don't think so. But it's such a big deal. But you have a woman who is currently in the UK, Desiani, who had stolen just that amount from 4 oil exporting companies. Just 4. We're not talking about several other ways that she has squandered money or had frittered money away from the country, or had